Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Nazca Lines, drawings only gods could see. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. On a dry plateau between the Andes and the Pacific coast in southern Peru, an ancient culture made drawings in the desert. Simple enough on its surface, except that the drawings are enormous. A hummingbird 93 meters long, a spider 46 meters across, a monkey with a spiraling tail 93 meters long, a condor with a 130-meter wingspan, and hundreds of straight lines stretching for kilometers across the desert floor with a precision that confounds modern surveyors. The Nazca Lines are visible only from the air. For the people who made them, the Nazca culture, who flourished between 100 BC and 800 AD, there were no aircraft. So why did they make images that only a god, or perhaps a pilot, could appreciate in their full form? The Nazca Lines are one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The sky was the original clock, calendar, and map. Before writing, before money, before cities, human beings looked up and organized their lives around what they saw. The position of the sun at solstice told them when to plant and when to harvest. The rising of specific stars marked the seasons. The phases of the moon governed ceremonial calendars in cultures from Ireland to India. Our ancestors were not casual observers of the night sky. They were meticulous, obsessive, and precise in a way that rivals modern astronomical science. This precision is encoded in stone at sites around the world. Newgrange in Ireland is aligned so precisely that sunlight enters its inner chamber only during the 5 days around the winter solstice, and it has done so every year for more than 5,000 years. The pyramids of Giza are oriented to true north with an accuracy of 0.05 degrees. Stonehenge tracks both the midsummer sunrise and the midwinter sunset, as well as the 18-6-year lunar cycle. These alignments are not accidental. They were engineered with mathematical precision by cultures we have long underestimated. What drove this obsession with celestial mechanics? Partly practical. Agriculture depends on knowing the seasons. But partly something more profound. Ancient cultures believed the sky was alive, that the movements of stars and planets determined the fates of kingdoms and harvests. In this worldview, encoding celestial cycles into permanent stone was not merely useful but sacred. The great monuments of the ancient world are, among other things, the most durable clocks ever built. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the Nazca Lines. Drawings only gods could see is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Nazca Lines were created by the Nazca culture between approximately 100 BC and 800 AD by removing the dark reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles of the desert surface to expose the yellowish-white ground beneath. The lines have survived for over 2,000 years because the Nazca Plateau is one of the driest and most windless places on Earth. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly, it is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered there are over 800 straight lines, 300 geometric figures, and 70 zoomorphic figures, animals and plants. The largest figures are over 200 meters long. The straight lines, which are the majority of the geoglyphs, run in multiple directions over the plateau and extend for distances of up to 50 kilometers. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The straight lines were created with remarkable accuracy. A surveying study found that the longest lines deviate from a true straight line by less than 4 meters over their entire length. This accuracy could have been achieved using stakes and cord as surveying tools without requiring elevated vantage points. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Maria Reich, a German mathematician who devoted her life to studying the Nazca Lines, proposed that they formed a giant astronomical calendar with lines and figures pointing towards solstice and equinox positions of the sun and moon. Subsequent analysis has confirmed some astronomical alignments, but not enough to support the calendar hypothesis for all lines. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of anthropologist Johann Reinhard proposed that the lines were religious pathways related to water and mountain worship, walking routes used in ritual processions toward mountains that controlled rainfall. This interpretation is supported by evidence that the lines often point toward mountains and that the Nazca culture lived in a water-stressed environment. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The animal figures appear to have been made by a single continuous line, a technique called single-stroke drawing where the line does not cross itself. This suggests the figures may have been ceremonial walking paths as well as images, with the act of walking them being ritually significant. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. Equally puzzling to investigators, modern analysis using LiDAR and drone photography has revealed hundreds of previously unknown Nazca figures, including figures whose details are too fine to detect from ground level. The full extent of the geoglyph tradition is still being documented. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation, and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Nazca Lines, drawings only gods could see. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the Nazca Lines were ritual pathways used in religious processions related to water and mountain worship. The large straight lines represent paths walked towards sacred mountains. The animal figures represent totemic beings associated with specific clans or ritual specialists. The lines served a social and religious function that did not require viewing from above. This is the most widely accepted current interpretation. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the Nazca Lines formed an astronomical calendar and observatory system, with lines and figures pointing toward significant rising and setting positions of the sun, moon, and stars. The calendar function would have been crucial for coordinating agricultural and ritual life in the Andean environment. Some astronomical alignments have been confirmed. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the lines were offerings to gods or ancestors, created in the belief that supernatural beings could perceive the earth from above and would be pleased by the images created on its surface. A common cross-cultural logic in which sacred images are created for supernatural rather than human viewing. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and heal. In science, what is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Nazca Lines, drawings only gods could see, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes ceramic sherds and post holes found along the lines and at the ends of figures are consistent with ritual activity, feasting. Offering deposition, suggesting the lines were used as processional routes for ceremony. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the astronomical alignment analysis by astronomer Anthony Aveni found that while some Nazca lines do point toward astronomical events, the proportion is not significantly greater than would be expected by Chang. Given the large number of lines in multiple directions, This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed. Experimental archaeology has demonstrated that the Nazca figures could have been planned and laid out using only ground-level tools, stakes, cords, and simple geometric proportioning, without any need for aerial vantage points or advanced technology. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Nazca Lines, drawings only gods could see. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Nazca Lines are a UNESCO World Heritage Site under increasing threat. Illegal mining, squatter settlements, and agricultural encroachment have damaged portions of the geoglyph field. Drone photography and LiDAR surveys are racing to document the full extent of the tradition before further damage occurs. In 2020, a new AI-assisted analysis of satellite imagery identified more than 140 previously unknown figures. The Nazca Lines remain one of the most fascinating products of an ancient culture's relationship with landscape and the sacred. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Nazca Lines, drawings only gods could see from the historical record through the physical evidence. Across the sea, unpicking theories and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Nazca Lines ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.